fresh, this shit hot, boy.
What's up guys, I'm Landon from Shoeware, and today we're checking out the newly released Nike PG6 in this All-Star Weekend colorway. So if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So taking a look at the box and the price, really quick, an alternate colorway name for these is the Valentine's Day edition for this PG6. I've seen that in a few different places, and honestly that would kind of explain why you have a little Cupid on this box kind of shooting an arrow. But it is a cool box on these. I just don't really expect them to all get a box like this going forward on more releases. But as for pricing, I don't know how or why, but these are still only retailing for $110. That's pretty much like what his line has been at the whole entire time since it started. Most other lines tend to jump up by $5 or $10, you know, every couple of years. So definitely a great budget friendly option, which is really nice. So checking out the appearance for these, first for the colorway, I think these are really clean. You have some butterflies on there to kind of get your attention, and the floral overlays are really nice on the upper. It's also tied into the lacing setup too. And then staying in that same section, you have a basketball with an arrow kind of poking through it. That just ties the whole thing back into the colorway name again. And you have a lot of different materials and just different textures used on the upper that I am a fan of. And I'm actually going to get more into that, more into the specifics on that here in the materials section in just a second. But I do think it spices this model up. And honestly, PG's line was due for a little revamping, because a few years back, the PG4 shocked pretty much everyone. They went with like a zipper running up the middle of the shoe. I don't think that any active shoe lines have really, you know, had that kind of setup before. And last year for the PG5s, they did simplify that model a lot, and it was still a really nice shoe to play in. Just not a lot to look at, but I mean, these are really clean. I even like how PG's logo is kind of like extended up from the bottom of the shoe, kind of peeks on to the midsole. And the reverse Nike swoosh on these looks sick. The Zoom Freak 3 had that reverse Nike swoosh too on that model. It just didn't really hit for me, not even close to the Zoom Freak ones that had that big reverse swoosh. But I do think it looks nice on this PG6 model. Just overall, I think these came out well, but now let's go ahead and see how these hold up. So now looking at more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning, last year's Nike PG5 had a full-length air dot strobel setup that was just amazing to play in. Like the PG5 actually made my top 5 shoes to hoop in from all of last year. I just think that was an all-around really nice shoe, and the cushioning was part of the reason why. But Nike did switch up the setup for this year's PG6 model. You're going to get a full-length Nike React midsole, meant to give you a smooth and responsive feel. Then you're also going to have a TPU shank in the midsole that helps with support and stability, but I'm going to get to that more in a second. So comparing the two models between the 6 and the 5, I will say that the PG6 doesn't feel quite as soft as last year's model. I know the PG5s use some like memory foam that kind of molded to your foot over time, so those were extremely soft from the jump. Then that soft feel would start to fade away a little bit as it kind of conformed to your foot. These don't really do that, but overall the cushioning is still really nice. I mean, they're going to be responsive and well balanced from front to back, and honestly I like shoes that do that better compared to like loading up the forefoot with like a bunch of cushioning pods, kind of leaving out the back half of the shoe a little bit like some shoe lines will do. But the sock liner is also going to feel pretty padded. I think that enhances the comfort a little bit more. Then the rest of the upper feels really easy to move around in too. So I wouldn't say they are exactly like the PG5s. I mean, like flatly they aren't, because you have different stuff being used. Maybe a little bit more break-in time required on these, but still pretty quality as far as the cushioning goes. So now getting into more of the materials and the support, the upper on the PG6 has a few different materials and just textures at play, like I just said in the appearance section. The toe box is going to be a little bit softer, more so than the middle portion of the upper, which is like a transparent textile or like synthetic design. It feels just more scratchy and just rougher to feel than the toe box. And then around the heel, you're going to get a much softer feel with like a plush design. That's also going to be what makes up the sock liner too. But honestly, I think these came out really nice. Nike did put a little bit more into this year's model, just as far as the appearance goes. I think a lot of that kind of trickled down into the materials section that was being used on this design as well. And then looking at the support, one thing that was lost on these is a pretty noticeable outrigger that showed up on the PG5s. That was just kind of there to help brace your foot, also give you a wider base to kind of help with balance. And the PG5s also had some patches that kind of ran up from the midsole to kind of help a little bit with your lateral containment. And you're not going to find anything like that on these, but you do have an outsole shank that helps keep the shoe intact. And then along with that, the laces are going to feed through some bands. They wrap over your foot, and kind of whenever you tighten the model, it helps keep your foot locked in and stable over the footbed. And the upper is pretty thin, but that does help a lot with the ventilation. I mean, these have a really nice airflow for your foot, and that doesn't negatively negatively affect the support, which is nice. The middle portion of the upper does have like a net, the part that looks like netting. Honestly, that spot's really sturdy. And the upper construct just helps keep these really light. I mean, it's only weighing 402 grams for a size 10.5. That is going to be a little bit heavier than last year's model, but still on the much lighter side for a basketball shoe in general. So that is something I look for because I like shoes that are free and easy to move around in. These do check that box. To finish off with traction, after stripping the Kobe 9 of its traction pattern and putting it on the PG5s, Nike went with a little bit of a different look for this year. You're going to have a bunch of little spots sectioned off that have some just arrows built in there to help with your front to back and your side to side movements. And honestly, it's pretty dope how they did it. And these played really well. I'm going to hold off on my official opinion though until I can get into my better gym to really test them out. But on a dustier court that I filmed on, they performed really solid. The grip was definitely there, like these shoes are squeaking on the floor. And some additional rubber was used on the outsole, which should help with the durability. The grooves do look thicker than last year's model. So I mean, using these outdoors is definitely in play as well. But to finish off with sizing, I went true to size on this model, and the length is good, maybe a little extra room in the toes, not enough to where I'd go a half size down though. These do feel a little bit more narrow compared to the PG5s, but not by a lot. So overall, this is yet another shoe in PG's line that you can get for a steal of $110. Some colorways are already on sale for even less. And these are going to give you a really well-balanced attack on the court. I mean, the cushioning is good, the materials do feel higher quality than last year's model, the support plays well, and the traction is going to be nice on this model too. And I definitely do like the look for these better, which is just going to be the cherry on top, so I am a fan of the PG6 for sure. Thanks for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying these shoes and you want to support our channel, just click the link on screen or check out the link below or in our bio. But until next review, I'm Miguel from shoeware. Peace.